Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are going to discuss the concepts of the marginal propensity to consume and the marginal propensity to save. First of all, I would like to give you the definition of this term, which is the marginal. Marginal means the change. So by definition, what do you mean by the marginal propensity to consume? It does means that what would happen towards your consumption if your income is going to change. So we are dealing with two variables. One is the consumption, another one is the income. So among these two variables, your income is the independent variable and the consumption is the dependent variable, as the consumption is going to depend upon your income. So whenever the income is going to change, what would be the impact towards the change in the consumption? So by definition, it represents the marginal propensity to consume. So what would happen towards your consumption when your income is going to change? So the formula for the MPC is equal to the change in the consumption divided by the change in the income. Whenever your income is going to change, it is going to lead some result change in towards your consumption, and by dividing both of the changes, that is the change in the consumption and the change in the income, we are going to get the value of the MPC. So this is some practical example that how can we calculate the value of the MPCs. It is like this, that if for example it is the year that is the 1998 and this is the year that is the 1999. So in the year of the 1998, your disposable income was equal to $30,000, and the year of the 1999, your disposable was equal to $40,000. Now we have to find out the change, that what is the change in the income when after 1 year, that from 1998 towards the 1999, the change in your consumption, the change in your disposable income is equal to your $10,000, as your income has been changed from the 30,000 towards the 40,000. Now, when your income was equal to the $30,000, your consumption was equal to 23,000, and whenever your income was equal to 40,000, your consumption was equal to 31,000. Now, there is a change in the consumption too. When your income has changed up to $10,000, your consumption has changed up to $8,000. So the value of the formula, we can find out the value of the MPC by putting these values into the formula, that is MPC is equal to change in consumption divided by the change in the disposable income. Now the change in consumption is equal to 8,000 and change in the disposable income is equal to the 10,000. So 8,000 divided by the 10,000 and answer is equal to 0.8. So if we can find out the value of the MPC, we can also find out the value of the MPS. So saving is always that part of your income which you have not consumed. So if your income was equal to 30,000 and you have consumed only 23,000, so the remaining portion is equal to 7,000. And how can we find out this 7,000? Is that we can deduct this value out of our income. The remaining is the 7,000. So in the year of the 1999, when your income was equal to the 40,000, your consumption was equal to 31,000. So your saving was equal to the 9,000. How we have evaluated this value of the 9,000 is that by deducting the consumption out of the disposable income. So in the year of the 1998, your saving was equal to $7,000, and the year of the 1999, your saving was equal to the $19,000. So the change among these values. So how can we find out the change? We have to find out the difference between the second value and the first value. Now second value is 40,000, the first value is the 30,000. 40 minus 30, answer is equal to 10,000. So second value was the 31,000 in terms of the consumption, and the first value is 23,000. So the second value divided minus the first value, the answer is equal to the change. So whenever you have to find out the change in terms of the macroeconomic variable, you have to use the formula, that is second value minus the first value. So we have got these three values which are written in the red, that is representing the change, that what has happened towards these variables over the time period of 1 year. The change in your disposable income is equal to $10,000, change in the consumption is equal to $8,000, and the change in the savings is equal to the $2,000. So we have to find out the value of the MPC and the value of the MPS. The formula of the MPC is equal to change in consumption divided by the change in disposable income, and the formula for the MPS is equal to the change in savings divided by the change in the disposable incomes. So we are dealing with three types of the variables. One is the disposable income, the other one is the consumption, and third one is the savings. So by putting the values in these formulas, we can find out the value of the MPC, which is 0.8 in this case, and the value of the MPS, which is 0.2 in this case. An important feature of the concepts of the marginal propensity to consume and to save is that the same like that when we add the APC and APS, the answer is equal to 1. Similar is like in case of the MPC and MPS, whenever we have to add the value of the MPC and the MPS, the answer is always equal to 1. You can see by adding 0.8 and 0.2, the answer is equal to 1. So after discussing all the concepts which is relevant towards the APC, APS, MPC and MPS, both are relevant. That is on one side we have the consumption and on the other side we have the savings. So saving is the relationship between the consumption and the savings, that part of the income which is not consumed is your saving, and that part of the income which is not saved is representing your consumption. So what can we do if we have to use a graph? How can we graph the consumption function? This is an important consideration in terms of the macroeconomics, and whenever you have to draw the income, when you have to draw the GDP, we have to use certain different assumptions which are not being used in regular graphing or the regular math scenario. So in this case, whenever you have to draw the consumption, you have to take the disposable income, which is your independent variable along the x-axis, and you have to take the consumption, which is your dependent variable along the y-axis. But what about the scale? The scale which you are going to use in case of when you have to draw the consumption function, whenever you have to draw the saving function, or whenever you have to draw the GDP. The scale which you are using along the x-axis, the same scale you have to use along the y-axis. So why we do that? We do that because we want to get this 45-degree line. And what does this 45-degree line represent? This 45-degree line represents the income level. So we are taking an assumption. Suppose that whenever our income level is equal to 1000, we are consuming exactly 1000. It means whenever our income is equal to 1000, we are consuming 1000. It means our income is equal to our consumption. Whenever our income is equal to $2000, we are consuming exactly 2000. It means savings is equal to 0. Whenever our income is equal to 3000, we are consuming exactly of the 3000, which is representing that our income is equal to the consumption, and savings is equal to 0. And suppose this is the value of the 4000. When we have got the 4000 income, our consumption is exactly equal to the 4000, representing our saving is equal to 0. So this 45-degree line, what does it represent? If consumption rose at the same rate as the disposable income, we are assuming that this is an assumption, and we have to take this assumption before drawing the graph relevant towards the income and that of the GDP. If the consumption is going to rise at the same rate as that of the disposable income, a graph of this function would be a 45-degree line, which you can see in this pink line. This is a 45-degree line, and we are assuming at this stage that whatever our disposable income is, we are consuming exactly the same amount, leaving that our saving is equal to 0. So that's why this is the first step whenever we have to draw the consumption function, whenever we have to draw our GDP. So in a second step, we have drawn the actual value of the consumption. So you can see when our income is equal to 0, we are dealing with some kinds of the consumption, that is this point. When our income is equal to 1000, our consumption is exactly equal to 1000. When our income is equal to 3000, the consumption is equal to 1750. It represents, that is the difference between the disposable income and the consumption. So the savings is the difference between this line, that is the income line, and this line, that is the consumption line. So this is the value of the savings like this. It is equal to 1250. Now, what does this mean? That this 45-degree line is actually your income line, and this consumption line is based upon the data, that what would be the consumption depending upon different values of our income. Now what about the saving? We haven't drawn a saving line, but we can find out the saving out of these two lines, as savings is actually the difference between the income and consumption. By formula, it is same like that. The saving is equal to the disposable income minus consumption, and from graph we can say that this is your income and this one is your consumption. And how can we find out the saving? The saving is the vertical distance between the consumption line and the 45-degree line. So this is the consumption, this is the saving. So what is about this case? Actually, the saving is actually the difference between the income line and the consumption line. And this one is your savings. So consumption is the vertical distance between the bottom horizontal axis and the C line. What is the consumption? It is the difference between this x-axis and this C line. So all the area which is below the C line and above this horizontal axis, that is your x-axis, it is going to represent your consumption. So whenever your disposable income is equal to 2000 like this, consumption is equal to 1440, and what about the savings? Savings is also always the difference between the disposable income and consumption, and it is equal to the 2000 minus 1440, and the answer is equal to the 560, which is this. So actually, what is consumption? The consumption is the difference between this C line and this x-axis. And what is the saving? Savings is actually the difference between this income line and this consumption line. Consumption is the vertical distance between the bottom horizontal axis and C. And what happens if our income is equal to the 1000? So this is the 1000. You can see if the income is equal to 1000, consumption is equal to 1000, and the difference between the same values is always equal to 0. Now you can see that there is both of the curves are going to intersect at the same point. There is no difference between the income line and the consumption line. Both lines are intersecting at this point. It means there is no difference between these 2 points. The saving is always equal to 0. Saving is equal to 0 at 1000 disposable income because there is no distance between the C line and the 45-degree line. So that's why there is saving is equal to 0. Now what happens when our income is equal to 0? This is this point. At the origin, our income is equal to 0. But if our income is equal to 0, we are consuming certain amount, which is like this. That is representing your y-intercept. And your y-intercept is equal to the 625. It means if you are not earning something, then still that you are making some types of consumption. It means that if we don't earn, it doesn't mean that we stop eating, we stop spending on our necessities of life, we stop spending on the medicines or other necessities of life like rent, like school fees, something like that. So even our disposable income is equal to 0, we are making certain type of the consumption. Now what happens is that in this case, when our income is equal to 0, we are making certain types of the consumption. Then what will be the value of the saving? Then saving is also the difference between the disposable income and the consumption. Now in this case, it will be equal to 0 minus 625, and the answer is equal to minus 625. Now what is this? There is another type of the consumption. We are going to divide our consumption into 2 parts. One is the autonomous consumption, another one is the induced consumption. Now the definition of the autonomous consumption is that whenever your disposable income is equal to 0, what type of consumption, whatever type of consumption you are going to make at this point, that is going to represent your autonomous consumption. So whatever the scenario which is given to you, and if you are asked that you have to find out the autonomous consumption, you have to put the value of the disposable income equal to 0, or in terms of the graph, you have just to find out the y-intercept. Whatever your y-intercept is actually is equal to your autonomous consumption. You should remember that if we are going to divide our consumption into 2 parts, one is the autonomous, another one is the induced. The definition of the autonomous consumption is that whenever your disposable income is equal to 0, whatever type of the consumption which you are going to make, it is your autonomous consumption. And in terms of the graph, its value is always equal to the y-intercept. That's like this.